3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode, Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and I'm doing a review of King in Black number 3. Now, I did a Ash on video for the original issue of King in Black, and I was very pleasantly surprised. If you haven't watched that video, maybe give it a try. A quick summary, I really like the issue, and I wasn't originally going to get this series because I'm just tired of supporting events. These events, it's just like, it's too many, especially over at Marvel. And they're usually overpriced. And, just, you can get them in the trade. I don't see the point. I really would just want to collect ongoing issues. I've talked ad nauseum about that. I didn't do a review on issue number 2, nor have I reviewed any of the Venom issues. I am reading those. I'm a Venom collector, and all of it's good right now. Just as a heads up, my only reading samples for this series are King in Black and the Venom issues. I do not read all of the millions of other spin-off titles and crossover issues and this and that. I don't think you need to, based on my experience with Absolute Carnage, and I don't think you should have to, because that's just a ripoff. You shouldn't need 50 books to tell your story. You should be able to tell your story in the main core issues, and then the spin-offs should be kind of like the exploration of subplots that were linked to the story, that people who are really into it, they can get more, right? But the main plot line, the main what's going on, should go through the main book. That's not always the case, however, unfortunately. We got in memoriam to Mike Hobson. I admit I really don't know who Mike Hobson was, but it's always sad to see someone go. This book is written by Donny Cates, penciled by Ryan Stegman. I'm a big fan of both as far as Marvel Comics goes. And let's see. In this book, spoilers, Venom's dead, and we see Dylan crying. This whole issue is now essentially kind of going to Dylan, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Dylan's going to be a character that is he can fall either way, right? I think right now Dylan has a potential to be something new and cool at Marvel, and he also has a potential to be something absurd and kind of dumb and just not fall, on all, might not stick the landing. I don't really know. Marvel walks this fine line of symbiotes where it's just too many, and too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And I think that Marvel, I fear that they might overdo it, overstay the welcome, if you will. So the thing that I like about King in Black is the same thing that I like about DC's Metal and the Death Metal. I'm actually really I'm in the middle of reading Death Metal right now. I kind of skipped it when it came out, and it's really good. I'm really shocked, and a lot of people were down on it, but I'm not here to talk about that. What I like about it is its bombastic nature. This, to me, is like what an event should be. Not what an event should be, but events like this should be. It's like what it's promising. King in Black is promising to be the next Infinity Gauntlet, right? It's saying, here is this mega threat that we've never faced before. He's super powerful. We've built him up for a long time. Same thing they did with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, leading up to Infinity Gauntlet. And finally, when it comes together, it's going to be, holy cow, like massive catastrophe. And it is. Unfortunately, Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman are not up to the task as well as Jim Starlin and George Perez were. They're just not. I'm a fan of both. But this King in Black issue, it's fine. It's good. I actually truly am really enjoying it. But I feel like I'm missing something when I read this book. I feel, like I told you, I'm reading this and I'm reading the Venom. And I feel like that's all you really should need to do. The original Absolute Carnage story felt like it should have just been in the pages of Venom. It should have been an in-comic event. It shouldn't have been its own big thing. And I think because it was exterior and they tried to make it its own thing, I think it actually suffered for it. King in Black, I feel, needs to be a bigger event because this feels like a bigger Marvel Universe thing, not a Venom story. But I feel also that I'm not able to really get the story that I need to out of King in Black and just Venom alone. So what I feel like is that Donny Cates is giving me more of a summary. I'm not getting a tight narrative. I'm getting like, hey, this happens, and then this thing happens, and then this thing happens. And I don't want to be down too hard on it because it is cool, and it is exciting, and it is like, oh, and it's all spectacle with very little drama, if that makes sense, right? And spectacle can be great. Spectacle meaning the big explosions, the eye candy, the mega events that you're just like, wow. Whereas drama being the character moments, the character development, interpersonal conflict, the things that make you relate to what's going on. A good story has both, and I feel like this one is more of one than the other. Super high on spectacle, drama not so much. But again, I don't want to be too hard on it. There's a great moment when Thor shows up, and I was like, oh yeah, it's on, because King in Black, he's just whooping ass. This whole story so far is just King in Black whooping ass. And it's a common storytelling technique to do the whole darkest before the dawn. You see this a lot. Actually, you don't see it enough, in my opinion. A lot of bad writers don't seem to understand that, and they just like, oh, look, so-and-so showed up, and they just whooped a bunch of ass because they're amazing, and there was never any moment where I felt it was out of control. Donny Cates at least understands very much that you have to make it feel hopeless for the heroes, so that when they triumph, you're like, oh, yeah, that was amazing. You have to first establish that. And he's doing it quite well here. Thor shows up. If you remember in the first issue, when Sentry shows up, our heroes were all overconfident. They're like, oh yeah, we got it. We got our secret weapon. They're radioing in. Sentry shows up and he's like, okay, don't worry. This is going to take just a minute. And then King in Black, KNULL, just destroys him. You're no challenge. And that was a good technique for Donny to go, look, this guy is no slouch. He just took the Sentry and backhanded him like a bitch. You're just... so now we get Thor, which this isn't your daddy's Thor, right? Thor's always been his powerful character, but the current Thor that's also got the Odin Force, which is stupid. I hate the concept of the Odin Force, but whatever. That's not neither here nor there. He's got the Odin Force, and he's got the power cosmic. This is the most powerful Thor we've ever had. He is OP Thor. I'm going to call him that. He's OP Thor. And he shows up and we're like, okay, maybe is there anyone left in the Marvel Universe that might be able to deal with KNULL? Because Sentry's gone. But Sentry had a big Achilles heel that could be exploited. Thor doesn't. And we get the fight. And Thor, and KNULL throw down. We see our Dylan get tossed, because that's another thing they're hinting at, is that Dylan, he's got these special powers that are really strong against symbiotes and stuff. So we think, oh, maybe Dylan is going to be able to. No, he just gets swatted away. He's like, get out of here, boy. It's a nice fight. We get to see this where Thor smashes KNULL in the face and knocks off his jaw. You see KNULL with his jaw on the ground. And Knull responds. He says, You will burn for that. And Thor looks away, and he's like, if you can hear me, look to the skies. Everyone ready yourself. Knull has awoken the Celestials. So what's going on is the Celestials have been taken over by Knull. He's a super badass. And so Thor's looking, he's like, oh my God. And he's like, I hear you, I'm on my way. But he's turned his back to Knull, who summons the Necrosword. He's like, everyone will burn, and grabs him. And Thor starts to turn around, just as we see Celestials blasting the cities. And he rams the sword through Thor's chest. Like, when was the last time you saw something like this? You're like, oh, damn. So Donny Cates likes playing for keeps. And we see Knull talking into Thor's ear. And you will watch. You will know the pain of all black, don't you? That's the sword. Well, now you have the honor of being killed by its creator. You're just like, oh, shit. Meanwhile, Iron Man has taken over one of the dragons using his Extremis program. And he's riding in. Look at this. This is Iron Man riding in on a dragon. How ridiculous is this? This is like Scott Snyder and Donny Cates back and forth trying to one-up each other on who could be more metal in their comic books. Like, I do have to say I have to give it to Snyder and Capullo being more metal, but this is pretty dope. And everyone's like, "What are you gonna do, Tony? You're not riding a dragon. That's not gonna do anything." And he's like, "It's not a dragon, and it'll do whatever. It can be whatever. Sorry, it's whatever I want it to be. So how am I gonna beat the Celestials?" He's like, "Simple. I'm not gonna beat two Celestials. I'm gonna take over one essentially and beat the other, turn into Rock'em Sock'em robots." And so then we get to see two Celestials over the burning city just beating the shit out of each other. This would be one of those things that just like as a movie, you'd just be mind blowing. You'd be like, if the special effects could capture this. And again, it's one of the reasons that comics are so great is because you're not going to see this in a movie. As far as comic book movies have come, they haven't come this far. And there's just think of all the things we've seen here. Thor throwing down with Knull. We've seen Iron Man riding a dragon. Now we're seeing symbiote Celestials duking it out. The city's on fire. I mean, not just fires in the city. The whole city is a raging inferno. And apparently, like, there's some shield thing going on. Like the whole planet is covered in symbiote, so like nothing can come in or out. And they talk about, and this is going to be a big spoiler, so you might just want to end the video now if you're not wanting to. For every darkness, there is a light, an opposite, an equal. There is another, an opposite of Knull, a god of light, the source of Dylan's power. Hugin, Munin, swiftly find him, Thor sends his ravens. But while Knull's dome still stands, it cannot break through. But I can. And I am on my way. And we get to see Silver Surfer Black. And you're just like, yes, yes. If you're a Donny Cates fan, you've been buying the Donny Cates books. And I just recently read it, the first beginnings of that, the Thanos win story on my Storytime live stream, to try to get people hooked and to say, hey, look, this is the beginning of the Donny Cates and why you should read it. And all of his stories, they interconnect. And he does within his own works what Marvel should be doing in all of their works and having these interconnections, but Marvel won't do that. But Donny still does. And if you miss that, if you want that shared universe and you want things to matter and events in this book, you know, they have ramifications that carry over into this book, Donny Cates is your guy. Whether or not you think he's the best writer in all, I don't think he is. I think overall this book is lacking on the narrative script writing skills, if you will. Story, very imaginative, very fun. I was very much entertained. Ryan Stegman's art feels like it's taking a dip. I don't know what's going on. When I first started reading the early Venoms and he was doing the regular art there, I really liked it. I liked what he did on Absolute Carnage. I feel it's a little sloppy on some of these. I don't know what it is. I still like it, but overall, this is a positive. I'm going to give it 4 stars because even if through its failings, it shines through, and it's exciting, and it's fun, and you're going to want to go back and read this again after a time, when it's slipped a little bit from your memory, and just have that experience all over again. This is what big comic events should be. Once a year, we should do something like this. If Marvel could let off the gas and make all their events, well, not all, just do one event a year like this, and that's it. And then let's let us have our comics, and let's have some breathing room and not be fatigued by just a pile on event after event after event. I give this my recommendation. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you read it yourself, or if you're going to read it. If you're not reading it, why not? And I'll see you next time. Thanks.